10 days ago, the Prime Minister declared it was now phase 2 of his government. A new leaf, a new start, no problems at all to be foreseen. What's happened since then? The Deputy Prime Minister gone, an extensive cabinet reshuffle, and now the United States Ambassador sacked in a further scandal. Yes, it doesn't seem like phase 2 is all that smooth after all. Well, my name's Tom Harwood and this is GB News Originals. Remember to click that subscribe button to stay completely up to date. Now, Peter Mandelson was a big name to be appointed to be the new UK ambassador to the US around 8 months ago. There was a fierce competition in terms of who might be the new ambassador. Names that were doing the rounds included former Foreign Secretary David Miliband. There was speculation that former Chancellor George Osborne was even in the running. But it was Peter Mandelson, the former Business Secretary, the former Northern Ireland Secretary, the former Labour guru, the third man in the room in the Blair-Brown project that took New Labour to power in 1997. Well, he was appointed as the new US ambassador. It was the first political choice to be a US ambassador in decades. Ordinarily, it's a Foreign Office diplomat, a senior Mandarin who gets the role in a sort of more perfunctory way. But this government took a risk on a political appointment, thinking that a big name was needed to be able to handle the second Trump presidency. Of course, in the first Trump presidency, the UK ambassador to the US was sacked after diplomatic cables were leaked to the papers.
Hello, I'm Bev Turner. Now, it can feel like the money in our bank accounts at the moment does not keep up with the cost of living, and maybe there's a solution. I'm here today with the CEO of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. Cameron, what is TallyMoney?
Well, Bev, with TallyMoney, you get a current account and a debit card, but instead of pounds, you use milligrams of gold as your everyday money.
So why gold?
Gold traditionally is a great store of value. It has, on average, gone up at over 11% per annum for the last 25 years against the pound. It's tripled in value in the last decade. And in the last 2 years alone, it's increased by 50% against the pound. Banks' savings products just can't compete with that level of growth.
But this isn't just about gold. This is about a currency that you guys have created at TallyMoney. Explain it to me as though I'm an idiot.
So, look, people need to be able to hold their earnings and build their savings in a money that retains its value and remains in their legal control and remains theirs to access, away from government control.
Great. You had me at not exposed to government control.
You should feel safe and happy with your money. You should have peace of mind the more money you see in your bank balance, and that's the type of thing we're trying to deliver and give people choice in the type of money they get to use every day.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Cameron. Thank you.
This time round, there has been a sacking, but not because of diplomatic cables being leaked. It's because of a close relationship between Peter Mandelson and the convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. There had been a series of embarrassing leaks. First off, of course, were the messages that were written by Peter Mandelson in a birthday book. This birthday book, published by the US House Oversight Committee, which included, they allege, a message from Donald Trump. Donald Trump denies that this message was written by him. But this scandal has spread far beyond the President of the United States. No, the President of the United States is suing various publishers for billions of dollars due to what he regards as false accusations and allegations. But it's in the UK where there has been a political response the fastest, although many people would argue not fast enough. Because after all, the relationship between Peter Mandelson and Jeffrey Epstein was long known about. Much of what has forced Peter Mandelson from his position as ambassador was actually in the public domain. Of course, any ambassador's appointment to Washington DC undergoes thorough and rigorous vetting from the UK security services. It's very difficult for the UK to appoint anyone who has skeletons in their closet. Those skeletons are found out by our very sophisticated security infrastructure. So it was a political decision, and there was knowledge about relationship with Jeffrey Epstein that was known about by the Prime Minister. Clearly, there was much that was in the public domain, and undoubtedly more that was known about in various files that went through that vetting procedure. Curious then that the Prime Minister dug his heels in on Wednesday. Faced by the Leader of the Opposition, Kemi Badenoch, at Prime Minister's questions, she used all 6 questions reserved for the Leader of the Opposition to ask about Peter Mandelson, about the vetting that he went through, about whether the Prime Minister gives him his full support. And extraordinarily, at that moment in time, the Prime Minister dug in. He tied his colours to the mast. He backed to the hilt Peter Mandelson, saying he gives his support, that he has confidence, utmost confidence, in the ambassador to the United States. And yet, then more leaks came. Yes, leaks of emails where Peter Mandelson backed Jeffrey Epstein after his conviction for sex trafficking, where Peter Mandelson advised Jeffrey Epstein to try and get an early release from prison, where this relationship continued after that conviction. It's something that Peter Mandelson says he now regrets, says that he was taken in by the charisma, by the charm, by the lies of Jeffrey Epstein. But this latest embarrassment grew the political pressure. Labour MP after Labour MP said that Peter Mandelson must go. The Labour MP Andy MacDonald took to the media this morning to say that he did not know a single Labour MP who, in private, would admit Peter Mandelson should stay. And yet this morning, it appeared that Number 10 was still digging in. The new Home Office Minister, Mike Tapp, was sent onto television station after television station, radio station after radio station, to again and again and again endorse the Prime Minister's view from yesterday that Peter Mandelson should remain as the ambassador to the United States, as our man in Washington, DC. This new junior minister at the Home Office went on round after round of interviews, questioned again and again and again, digging in to a position that shifted just hours later. It was the most extraordinary U-turn from this government. No doubt the political pressure just became too much, and the government buckled. The government buckled after it had sent a minister out this very morning to defend its position from yesterday, after this new information was known about the emails that Peter Mandelson had sent to Jeffrey Epstein after his conviction. This, of course, compounds the evidence that we saw within the book published by the House Oversight Committee, the birthday book that included 10 pages of well wishes from Peter Mandelson. Pictures of Mandelson and Epstein, one of them wearing a bathrobe, as the United States would call a dressing gown, but also a picture of the infamous Caribbean island owned by Jeffrey Epstein, where, curiously, Peter Mandelson had written the words "Yum Yum" in brackets above that island. These were not just a bad look for the British ambassador. These were particularly difficult for the Prime Minister, who was faced these questions at Prime Minister's questions and really fell on the back foot. It was perhaps his worst Prime Minister's questions performance to date as Prime Minister. And he ended up digging in a position that Kemi Badenoch saw as untenable. It looked like the Conservatives were running rings around the Labour Party on this issue, not least because the moment that Peter Mandelson resigned, that was as a response to an urgent question in the House of Commons earlier today. The Conservative MP Neil O'Brien brought that urgent question to the dispatch box of the House of Commons, and Stephen Doughty, the Foreign Office Minister, responded by saying that Peter Mandelson had been sacked. That came late morning, just hours after Mike Tapp, the Home Office Minister, had been sent on the media round to defend the ambassador, Peter Mandelson. This looks like a chaotic government. This looks like an absolutely chaotic string of events. It looks like there's an oscillating undecision maker at the heart of high office. So what really is going on here? Well, there have been a huge number of resignations from top positions, whether it's Sue Gray, the first Prime Minister's first Chief of Staff, who had to resign after a series of sort of briefing wars and reports of much disquiet and indeed chaotic management. Then, of course, we saw the resignation of the Transport Secretary Louise Hay after a mobile phone was improperly declared missing after a mugging. Then, of course, the Corruption Minister. Well, she had to resign after allegations of corruption. The Homelessness Minister had to resign after accusations of making tenants homeless. The Housing Secretary, Angela Rayner, resigning, of course, after not paying £40,000 on a new home. Mike Amesbury, the Labour MP, resigning his seat after punching a constituent. The scandals have come thick and fast. Let's not forget, we're only 14 months into this government. This government got elected on a promise to clean up politics, to end what they described as the years of Tory sleaze. And yet, what have we seen since this government came to office? From the very moment that this government started, the freebie scandal, Sir Keir Starmer taking more free handouts than any other MP in the year before the general election. The stench of impropriety that seemed to waft around all of the different decisions that were made, the various resignations, even the way that things had looked. That this Prime Minister was not appearing to be cleaner than clean, well, that was a very difficult thing to deal with, given the high bar he held the previous government to. It does seem that this government has come somewhat off the rails. 10 days into the second phase of this government, this new blank slate, this fresh page that the Prime Minister boasted about in a social media video just 10 days ago, well, it's already descended into chaos. And of course, what we're now expecting is a visit from the United States President, a state visit, the President to arrive just next week. And all the meantime, we only have a temporary ambassador. We don't have a permanent ambassador now in Washington. That decision will have to be made, but it's unlikely it will be made in time of the state visit. These things matter. Our relationship with the United States matters very deeply indeed. The fact that we were able to get a preferential trade deal compared to many other countries around the world, certainly better than our neighbours in the European Union, that really mattered. And it did seem that the relationship that Peter Mandelson was building with Donald Trump and the people around him, they were pushing for more, for lower tariffs between these two countries, for greater trade access and the jobs that that would provide. But now, with no permanent ambassador in Washington, D.C., no appointment that the government has announced and unlikely anyone to be in point before that state visit, well, that throws a lot of things up in the air. It certainly does look like this is a government careering from one position to another, veering from side to side of the aisle, to resurrect an analogy that was used by Dominic Cummings, the former Chief of Staff to Boris Johnson, who since turned against Boris Johnson as Prime Minister. He described Johnson as a shopping trolley, unable to control, with the wheels wobbling all over the place. Well, if that was a metaphor to describe Boris Johnson, what on earth is the metaphor to describe this Labour government? A shopping trolley on steroids. Well, we'll follow this very closely indeed. Who could be the next ambassador to DC? Who could be the next permanent ambassador appointed by the Brits in Washington? Could Karen Price, the former ambassador, be invited back to the job? Or could it go to one of those people who was considered for the role beforehand? David Miliband, perhaps? Even George Osborne? Well, that remains to be seen. We'll be following it all very closely here indeed. Do remember to click that subscribe button and stay up to date with all the twists and turns of this remarkable and chaotic period of governance.